Okay, so this is something I've been considering making for a long time. I figure posting this will probably identify me to a certain extent anyway. That's life. I recently watched Nikki Carreon's video about their experience in a mental hospital following a serious mental health crisis, and it got into some pretty intense stuff that honestly hit home for me in a lot of ways, and it led me to watching their previous video from like 4 years ago, titled I Was Groomed, Hidden in Plain Sight. Those videos kind of inspired me to make this. It really impacted me. It made me feel more confident in telling my own story, and I think it's something that more people need to hear because I think this is something that can be really helpful for people. Partially, I just want this to be a record, and because I want to help people who've gone through a similar experience. When I met him, he was 22 and I was 17. This was in 2017. It was through some mutual friends of a person named Tiz who ran a local queer group called Queer Family Dinners in Carborough. I had been attending it for a while, since I was about 16. There was this other guy, Daniel, was one of Toby's best friends. He invited me and another person in his group, in the same group, to this like trans pride conference in Charlotte, which is about a few hours drive away. So all of these people were in their 20s. I think Tiz was maybe like 26 or so. Daniel probably like around early to mid 20s. And then the other person was like in their 20s or 30s or something. We went to that event, and that's where I met Toby on the ride to that event. And that was in like, I want to say like August or so of 2017. And so all of us kind of became friends, especially me and Toby. We hung out at his house a lot. We went camping. Since I was 17 and he was 22, he would buy us alcohol. He would supply me with weed as well. One time when I was drunk, in his room, he had offered for me to lay down in his bed, and because I probably had like 5 drinks, I had a like not a super high tolerance, and I know he had a pretty high tolerance. So I lay down in his bed, and he got on top of me, started to kiss me. I want to be clear, I liked him. It was not something that upset me in any way. When he kissed me, I had a thing for him for a while. I remember when we went on our camping trip, Daniel said something to the effect of, "Oh, you were saying his name in your sleep." And I don't know if that's actually true or not. It might have been. At the time, I thought it was great. You know, we had basically, I'll say like a situationship of sorts. Like we weren't really dating per se, but we kind of were. At the time, I thought it was a very good situation. But looking back on it, even if I had been old enough to consent, I think the alcohol and the fact that he didn't do anything to establish consent were already huge, huge violations of consent. But then coupled with the fact that, you know, he was 22 and I was 17, it's a lot. And so there was a little bit of an on again, off again. He, I remember at one point, told me not to tell his friends. I thought it was likely because of the fact that we had the age difference. But then he told his friends, and then he stopped things for a little bit, or he cooled things down. But then he went, "Oh, it's fine. We can keep seeing each other." There's a lot of that kind of just like lack of communication and stuff. And then we had a bit of a falling out regarding the fact that he told me at one point that he wears diapers. He had some kind of procedure that required him to wear them and just liked them so much he kept wearing them. And listen, no judgment to people who need to wear diapers as like a medical thing. I mean, more power to you if you run with it and you're just like, this is my life, and that's awesome. But I definitely took it to mean that it was a weird like fetish thing. What, you're telling me the guy with a diaper fetish is also a pedophile? I don't remember exactly how this happened, but I ended up telling one of his friends about the whole diaper thing, and it got back to him, and he called me angrily being like, "Oh, you revealed my secret." And I was with his friend, or no, his friend had already left. I was with my friend at the time, who, when Toby called me, my friend was like, took my phone and like started yelling at him and calling him a pedophile. And I made a post about him. After I posted the post, "Yo, you little trick, delete the post about me off your Facebook and stop running your mouth. Get over yourself and grow up. Delete it or you will be sorry. I'm so upset, man. You don't even know. You know what, Jason, I cared for you a lot. Why would you talk about me, dude?" One of his friends, Alex, was like, good knowing you, bro. I'm not going to be friends with you anymore because he's my best friend and I don't care what he did. And, oh, a 16-year-old is old enough to sleep with whoever, and I'm like, bro, I was 17, but he was actually referencing this is a thing that he actually said once, which is that there should be some kind of paper that 16-year-olds have to sign when I'm sleeping with them so that I don't go to jail for statutory rape. He said that to me, I think, on more than one occasion too. That I always felt was weird, even though I was having a relationship with him, because I was like, I don't know, it was just the sense of like, if you know that you're doing something that could get you in trouble, why are you putting the onus on the other person? Like, I think that was the extent of my realization at that point. But I think that just shows how little I understood about it. And so, after that, it was just a lot. Tiz was one of the first people I talked to about my relationship with Toby. Originally, I said, oh, I'm seeing someone who is older than me. And they were like, okay, well, just be careful, because I hadn't mentioned who it was. And then later on, after all this happened, I was like, yeah, just so you know, I don't want him coming to my birthday, my 18th birthday. So this is from my 18th birthday in 2018. These are Tiz's messages. It's your 18th birthday. Want you to celebrate in a safe place with some friends. Wouldn't you rather do that here than at your parents'? Yeah, true. And definitely no Toby. Okay, he won't be invited. As I say here, he's the one I was talking about, because I didn't say before. I'm basically like, yeah, 5 years is crazy. I'll say that. When you're 17, I'm sorry, hon. I'm glad you're protecting yourself. Dating people your own age makes sense. Yeah, think about if you were 5 years ago, where you were 5 years ago, blah, 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 blah. So this must have been July, I'll say around July 18th, 2018. So several months after my birthday, and that conversation that I had with Tiz. Importantly, this is Tiz, this is Toby, and this is Tiz's partner, Aiden. This is Daniel, and I don't know who these people are. This is what queer community looks like. Heart. Thank you to the wonderful souls who showed up to help one of our queer elders get out of a toxic living environment and into a safe and happy home. It was hot as hell, and there were a lot of stairs, and I feel like what we did today was a huge accomplishment. Not pictured as the kind and capable as hell. So without her volunteering her truck and willing hands, we would not have been able to do what we did. Thank you so much. We heart our queer fam. This is what it looks like. This is what queer community looks like. This guy. This pedophile. This is what queer community looks like. I don't think so. This guy who said that he wishes that there was a form that 16-year-olds could sign so that he can sleep with them. Nah, I don't think so. I really don't think so. So I was out of town when this was posted, and then I made a post about him with some more details in the Carbro Queer Connections group that we were all in, at which point I received this voicemail from Tiz.
First saved message. Hi Jason, it's Tiz. I would like to talk to you if you're amenable to it. I just want you to know that Toby was not formally invited to the event. He did show up. We had a very limited time to get all of this woman's stuff out of this horrible situation, and we used his hands, and I'm sorry that I didn't think about how that would hurt you. I don't know if you want me to confront Toby. I hadn't talked to you about it, so I don't really know what you want from me right now. I do know that the community that we're trying to build here needs to be a safe space for everybody. And I don't know how that looks. I'm going to reach out to, with this situation, I'm going to reach out to an older person who works within the LGBTQ community, and see what their guidance is with this. I'm kind of flying blind here. Sorry you're hurting. When I read your post, I felt sick and sad and angry on your behalf. And I just, I don't know. Just give me a call if you can, if you want to. I understand if you're angry. End of message.
And I said, It's not just about him being at the event or about using his manual labor, but he's in the group. He sees the posts that are in the group. And you posted a picture with him standing right next to you and Aiden in the group with the caption saying, "This is what queer community looks like." Even if you happen to use his labor for something good, like Toby shouldn't feel welcome or accepted in the community. Also, I know Aiden said he unadded Toby as a friend, and I appreciate that. Side note, he didn't. I'm fairly certain he didn't. And as I said, it's not really about the event in particular, but more that someone who's done what he's done shouldn't feel welcomed in spaces that are safe. This sounds like something where a restorative justice approach might be more appropriate than an ostracism. But restorative justice can also take a lot of resources, which I don't have on hand to offer. Restorative justice can look a lot of different ways, and if other people know more about it, feel free to correct me or chime in. This was not a group chat, by the way. As you can see from the top, it's not a group chat. What other people? But some options that come to mind are mediated conversations, the perpetrator taking responsibility and making amends, or possibly taking a course to educate themselves. It was at this point that we had a phone conversation.
Him to basically continue on the route that he's going, which is engaging in unconsensual sex with teenagers, which is not okay, and feeling like he has no one to turn to within the community and is not a part of the community. Restorative justice would be getting Toby help because, like I said, he is also a rape survivor, and I don't really know if this kid even understands what consent is. I know that when I was younger and I had been through a really bad relationship where, abusive relationship where there was a lot of unconsensual sex happening, when I got out of that relationship and went into my first queer relationship, I didn't understand what consent was. My body had been not my own for so long, and some of the ways in which I acted were basically just enforcing the ways in which I had been taught consent, which is what consent was not a thing in that relationship. Mm-hmm. So getting Toby education as to what he did wrong and how he can stop doing this to people in the future. But then as far as him being, I tried to figure out how to get him out of Scarborough Queer Connections, and I can't figure out how to do it. I need someone. I don't know if I don't have the right permissions, because my friend Cole was the one who you might remember, who actually started the group. But I want you to know that I am talking to people who know about this stuff way more than I do, like elders and people who work in these fields, to try to figure out a way. Because, honestly, like I said, I didn't know that Toby until after the event. I didn't know that Toby was in Scarborough Queer Connections. I didn't add him. He had never posted. And then when I realized, I don't know, I should have gotten in touch with you before I posted the photo, and I'm really sorry. I don't know. The event itself was a really positive event, and Toby was there for 4 hours in the heat, picking up boxes, carrying heavy things, and I felt like I needed to thank him for what he did. But I do realize that really hurt your feelings, and I'm really, really sorry, Jason. I'm really, really sorry. And I also know that if Toby were a cis guy, I would have been like, fuck you, get this fucking rapist out of here. I just don't know what to do, because he is also a young trans person looking for community, and also someone who recently went through a really traumatic sexual assault experience. So, like I said, that's why I've been contacted people who are older and wiser than me and know how to, deal with these things. So, but if we were to have, are you interested in having a mediated discussion with Toby about the ways in which he has wronged you?
Not at the moment.
Okay. do you feel like him being, approached by us and being asked to take a class in consent at Orange County Rape Crisis Center would be a part of his, would be a positive part of his amends towards what he did to you?
Yeah, I think he could definitely use a consent course.
Yeah. Okay. And then as far as amends on my end, what do you need from me to make amends for hurting you the way that I did?
Well, it's more, isn't Aiden a mod in the group?
What did you say?
Isn't Aiden a mod in the group?
Yeah, I can ask him. I think we're the same mods, but we're not admins. I can get in touch with Cole. So do you want me to try to figure out a way to get Toby out of our broker connections?
That would be great.
Okay. All right.
I have to go. I haven't eaten breakfast yet.
Okay. All right. I will work on making that happen, okay?
I'm going to look up restorative justice.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
Take care, then. Bye-bye.
After our phone call conversation, Tiz said Toby is no longer in Carborough Queer Connections, and I edited him out of the group photo for the move out. And I said, thank you. And then they said, we will be back in touch with you once I get more guidance. Do I have your permission to approach Toby about making amends and getting educated on consent? And I said, yes, but I really don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to have to be in contact with him. I was very clear on this. And I don't really care that he's a survivor too. The fact that remains is that he's a rapist, and excusing that on the basis of him not understanding consent isn't realistic. If you believe that you can help him from hurting other people, I can understand that, and I know you have good intentions, but it would also be good if you can find him help and be done with him, because you can't support both of us. It may seem like something that is possible, but you can't support both the victim and the rapist. You can't have a community that is open to queer people, often those of us who have been abused, and allow a rapist to be a part of that community too. Even if it is with the intention of him learning from his mistakes. As for the idea of a conversation with him, I can't really see what that would help other than A, him apologizing, which would mean very little, especially given the circumstances, and B, if he apologizes, then is he just forgiven and people forget what he did? I definitely don't want him to hurt anyone else, but I also don't want that burden to fall on me, or frankly anyone that I'm friends with. If he can become a better person and learn what he's done wrong, that's great. I'm sure there are people who can help with that. But him being trans doesn't make what he did not rape. And then Tiz is like, of course him being trans doesn't make what he did not rape. Keep in mind in the voicemail, they say,
I also know that if Toby were a cis guy, I would have been like, fuck you, get this fucking rapist out of here.
And him being an assault victim does not excuse him of rape. There is no excuse for what he did, period. I will not ask you to make any more decisions regarding this process. Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. And part of me does really hope that he becomes a better person. And of course, I obviously want to make sure that he doesn't hurt anyone else, but especially after he accused me of raping him and trying to threaten me into silence. I thought it was funny because I laid down on his bed when I was really drunk, and I thought about that because it was weird. Like, when he said that, I was like, did I do something wrong? But then I was like, no, that's crazy. Okay, but anyway, then it becomes this whole thing where Tiz basically says he's still going to be part of the community, but he can't go to any events that you're going to be at. So then it becomes the thing where it's like, let us know if you're going to come to an event so that we can make sure he's not coming. So it's like, okay, understood. I think Christy's like somebody they talked about before, and I are meeting with him on Tuesday to have an accountability conversation and let him know he is not welcome at any events you're attending. We are going to ask him to come to 1 or 2 consent workshops Christy is holding for our queer community, and we would like to invite you to come to one of them. Whew. And whichever one you choose, we would make sure... and whichever one you choose, we would make sure Toby does not attend. Yeah, Christy works with the Orange County Rape Crisis Center and is an anti-trafficking specialist. But anyway, yeah, a few days later, I hope you're doing okay. I wanted to touch base. We talked with Toby today about how we can make the Carborough queer community a safe space for you. He has agreed not to contact you himself and to encourage Alexander and Daniel not to contact you on his behalf. If he does contact you, please let us know immediately. We will consider that action a boundary violation for the space we are holding, and there will be consequences to him doing so. We also agreed that he can't come to events where he might bump into you. We cannot control anything outside of the events we organize. This will mean that if you have an interest in attending Queer Family Dinner and other events, it would be helpful if you would RSVP a couple of days before the event so we can avoid overlap. Once again, if he shows up when asked not to, that will be considered a boundary violation and there will be consequences for him. I wanted to assure you that this isn't about taking Toby's side or about trying to harm you. We want to hold him accountable for the harm that he's caused you. And part of that means taking any steps we can to prevent harm that he might do to others. But ultimately, how he chooses to respond is his responsibility. Your healing and recovery from this violation is important to me. If you need support accessing any resources you feel you need as you move through this, please let me know. Okay, so then later on, a friend of mine messaged Tiz and basically said Jason wasn't aware that his name would be mentioned to Toby, anything related to Toby learning consent. And I mean, there's some nuance to that where it's like, obviously, Toby knew that I made the post about him. Toby knew that I wanted him to learn consent and all that kind of stuff. But I had been very clear I did not want to be involved in this, you know? I was upset about that. I was upset that I was going to be having to RSVP to avoid seeing his face after he did what he did to me. And, you know, having to do work to avoid seeing somebody who I should not have to see in a space that's supposed to be safe for me. I understand restorative justice, but I also think you can't force that onto someone. It just feels like purposely re-traumatizing. I guess I'll put some of the other conversations up on screen. I'm not going to read all of this, but this whole thing of like, I wanted to ostracize him from the community as if that's like a bad thing, that he shouldn't be allowed in an open and accepting community. As if keeping an eye on him while he's at events is going to stop him from being a pedophile. And I understand getting him education and resources, that's a good thing. But that doesn't mean he has to go to events that are supposed to be safe. And it kind of paints me as like the villain. But anyway, it led to Tiz being like, oh, okay, we can kick him out of Queer Family Dinner. Because I was, as they say, a founding member. Because I've been going since I was 16. We will continue to hold Jason's safety and priority throughout all the organizing that we do. If he says he is going to an event, we will make sure it's a safe space for him. And basically saying, like, he's not welcome at Queer Family Dinner anymore, but then being clear that, like, they aren't organizing all of the local queer center events. Not saying anything about warning other people about him. Not on their list of priorities, I guess, but it's like, yeah, you aren't in control of other events and organizers, but you could warn them about him. That's like kind of the least you could do. TLDR, Queer Family Dinner is going to be your safe space as long as you're in Carborough. Toby will not be welcome to any of the Queer Family Dinners we organize in the future. If we stop organizing them, we can't control him coming. We can't stop him from coming to other events, but Queer Family Dinner is yours. Yeah, basically, TLDR, I agreed that he needed to be taught consent, but Tiz repeatedly put the onus on me to do things like RSVP to events to make sure that we didn't go to the same ones, and didn't want to cut ties with him or warn people about him. And they made the excuse that he was trans and needed community in order to, like, justify it somehow, or like say, oh, well, he was a victim too, etc., etc. And it's like, you're saying that you're supporting me, but are you? And Tiz's partner Aiden kind of expressed similar victim blaming tendencies, saying like, you know, it's not legally an issue. And it's like, I didn't say I was calling the police on him. I said he's a pedophile. He sleeps with teenagers. He knows the age of consent laws way too well. What more do you want from me? He's not less of a pedophile because he has also experienced his own trauma. The thing is, I had a lot of feelings for him, but I think it's very different for a teenager to have feelings for an adult versus the other way around. And I think any reasonable person would tell you that. When I was 22, which was years ago now, I remember thinking, I am now the age that he was when we met.
I just turned 23 years old, aka the same exact age as my groomer. And would I go out with a 17-year-old? Hell no.
I don't really understand what I ever saw in him. Maybe that's just because of years of resentment, which is, I think, understandable. And I guess the message of this, more than anything, is to say, you're not alone if you dealt with something like this. I can't speak to what the thought process is behind people like this, or whether someone can change if they are this despicable. Maybe he did, I don't know. But all I know is I and many other people have been harmed by people like him. And, it's the kind of harm that you often don't realize at the time how bad it is. And then it hits you and it hurts a lot. And then, I've been through a lot of therapy. I've talked a lot about it. I don't want to say you never fully heal from it, but it does come up. That's life, I guess. But that doesn't mean that you can't heal and move on. People like that choose their targets very specifically. That doesn't say anything about your self-worth. Like me personally, I remember in high school, I thought that I was unlovable. I thought that I was ugly. And I remember being so enamored by him and loved the attention that I got from him. And I think he knew that. You were hurt because somebody took advantage of you. And all you can really do is heal from that and recognize that they took advantage of you. They did something wrong and it was not your fault. That's about it. It's not really something that I wanted to make, but it feels cathartic to do. There has always been a thought in my mind of like, and I think probably a lot of victims can relate to this. If I can warn people about him, then, potentially I could save somebody from dealing with him. I never really had the confidence to do that, and a lot of the people around me didn't care about doing that, as you can tell from this video and all the stuff that I shared. So I guess this is me doing that. I hope you have a good day. Well, most of you. And especially if you're dealing with something along those lines, if you have been groomed, if you have been sexually assaulted or raped, I hope that things go well for you. I hope that you heal. And I hope that you have a good day. And to all my queer friends out there, community doesn't have to look like this. We can be better. And that's the end of the video.